Good evening. Welcome to the annual joint meeting of the Deaconess Foundation Board of Directors and the Deaconess Center for Wellbeing Board of Directors. My name is Rudy Nickens. I am the chair of the Deaconess Foundation Board, and I'm really happy that we are here. We haven't met in person in a little while, so this is a big deal. I'm pretty happy to celebrate in the room with humans. Not just appreciate the people, but not just in that format. So thank you all for showing up and for coming to hear what we're about and what the status of our programs. All Deaconess Foundation meetings begin with some sort of reflection, and I have been tasked with trying to offer that. So I woke up, well, this morning I had to lead a training for a group of people in town, and it was early in the morning, 8 a.m. And it was like, I don't do a lot of in-person stuff anymore. And it's like, oh wow, it's gonna snow. So the first time that I have to be somewhere early in the morning is gonna be a snowy day. So of course last night I'm in my panic mode, wake up at 5 a.m. to make sure that I have a way to get out of the driveway, and it's like it all worked out fine. But that whole thing about seasons just has been on my heart, because so I had to turn to Ecclesiastes to be reminded that for every person and for everything there's a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. When Scripture declares that for everything there is a season, this means that the various circumstances we go through in life are not by incident, but orchestrated or allowed by God. Ecclesiastes affirms two important reminders: that things we go through are not in vain, and that our situation will not last forever. We can be confident the season we are in life, the season of life we are in, will come to an end at some point. This verse serves as a reminder that our circumstances will change, and that is something we can come to expect. Whatever God takes us through has purpose to deepen our faith or to help us achieve breakthroughs in some areas. I'm also like this dude who remembers lots of old-timey stuff, right? So that old-time saying that death comes in threes? I don't actually organize my life in terms of superstitions, but it does sometimes show up as something worthy of reflecting on. So today, I want to hold up for our reflection and our prayers the lives of three extraordinary Black men who made ordinary Black men who made extraordinary lives and contributions to our community. I really like reminding us of all of our ordinariness. There's nothing special or unique about us. We all have the same inherent talents and qualities to be able to manifest our visions and our realities. We just need a chance to do it. We just need the resources and the space and the opportunities to show our brilliance. So I want to hold up the lives of three ordinary men who lived extraordinary lives. And we know they changed our world. Pastor Essel Emmanuel Johnson, the father of our dear beloved Bethany Johnson Jacqua, CEO of Deaconess Foundation, who through relationship with God and Christ founded and shepherded the Monument of Faith Church in the Kojic tradition. We have seen many evidence of his leadership and his heart and his vision and his contribution to the world, but we don't have to look far. Second ordinary man who I want to call into this room now is Martin Luther Matthews. You don't have to have known or met Mr. Matthews or even stepped foot in Matthews Dickey's Boys and Girls Club to know that it changed our community forever. To know that there are hundreds, if not thousands of young people whose lives were saved, improved, developed through contact from the vision that Mr. Matthews, an ordinary man, had on how to uplift our community. And the third ordinary Black man whose life I want to hold out today is Thadi Kennedy. He's our talking drum. He's unapologetically Black and feminist and scholarly, and his activism showed for generations and decades. His family legacy includes being the keepers of the story of the East St. Louis riots. He has told that story in many places to make sure that it is never forgotten and that we know. Incredible, beautiful man. And it's okay to both grieve and celebrate. For all three of these ordinary Black men who had extraordinary lives and changed our world, I offer to you a chance to just remember how they touched me. Now to business. We have a little business to do. So the first thing that I'm going to ask is for an approval of the consent agenda from our board of directors. You all received it in your mail. Are there any? Sometimes I have to look at Cheryl Walker and say, "Am I doing this right?" It's always nice to have somebody to ask that question. Why not utilize that person? So I'm asking the board if you had a chance to review the consent agenda, if there are any questions, if there are any things we need to remove from it, or can we move forward and accept it?
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining, same sign.
Okay. Thank you, Constance. So the next thing I need to do for business is to ask for the approval of our board of directors and officers for the year 2023. The trustees that we're asking for reappointment for second terms are the Reverend Wendy Bruner and Beth Noonan. The new trustees that we're asking to be appointed are the Reverend Jennifer Soul Glover from the Illinois South Conference and Sierra Walker, a community representative, and the Honorable Brian Williams as the community representative spot. The officer slate that we're proposing is Chairperson Beth Noonan, Vice Chairperson Tamara Von Walker, Secretary Caroline Battles, Audit Committee Chair Dale Fiedler, and Member at Large Patrick Brown. As always, a part of our executive committee is the Assistant Secretary. The new trustee board terms are in your pack. And then finally, I'm going to ask for the director reappointments for the Deaconess Center for Child Wellbeing. For a second term, reappoint Erica Henderson and Reverend Josh Privet. For a third term, Dr. Sue Steepleton. And the officer reappointments are, as the president, Dr. Sue Steepleton, as the vice president, Erica Henderson, and as corporate secretary, Reverend Bethany Johnson Javois. So I will entertain a motion to approve the slate. So moved. Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed or same sign? Great. So this is my final board meeting as chair of the Deaconess Foundation. As you saw, we just elected Beth Noonan, who I'm very excited to pass this gavel to. I will finish out my term at the end of the calendar year, but this is our last official meeting. It has been an understatement to say it's been a pleasure to serve in this role. It is an understatement to say how proud I am of the work that we do as an organization. First, let me just point out the incredible staff of the Deaconess Foundation, the work that they do, the competency with which they do it, the passion which they bring to it, the fun that they have doing it, and the seriousness with which they take their work is unmatched. I'm so honored to get to chair the board of an organization that has such a brilliant and competent and fabulous staff. Thank you, staff. You noticed in the election, we only had two committees of this board. The Racial Equity Committee, the Equity Committee, because that is our commitment. We have been an organization committed to equity, and it is in the center of everything that we do. We have a standalone committee to guide us and lead us through this work, but it's also insinuated into the value of everything that we do. But I just want to appreciate the work that the Equity Committee chaired for the last couple of years by Caroline and now by Patrick, and what they're taking forward and making sure that all of us keep equity at the center of our work forever. And the fine, you can't do a good job unless you're paying attention to the money, right? Right? So, our chief money person on staff, Matt Aldani, who I don't see in the room. Oh, there you are, right there. Makes, let me say, you just make it easy. And we've had a couple of chairs, and some of them have, like the current one, has financial background, but not everybody has, right? Not everybody, the last one before her, like, worked in a university academic setting that was nothing to do with business. It's because of you, Matt, that you work with our audit committee, that work with our auditors, that work with our banking system, that work with our investment portfolio is so stellar that you make it possible for all these people on this board to sign up for the audit committee. That's the yeah, I'm making the pitch for it. You demystify the work in a way that all of us have gotten smarter and better and more interested in. I'm particularly extending an invitation to our new incoming board members to consider joining the audit committee, because you will enjoy the work and you will appreciate and understand our work better than ever. Of all the things that I have done in these last many years that I've been in this seat, the thing that I am most proud of is leading the search committee that led to the selection of Bethany Johnson. At first, when the previous CEOs, Reverend Starsky Wilson, said he was leaving to move on to DC to work for Children's Defense Fund, I thought, damn, I get to be the board chair that loses Starsky. Damn. That's who I'm going to be forever known as, a board chair that like lost, a really good CEO. But in truth, what I get to be for real is the board chair that led the search that led to this amazing, amazing CEO. Thank you for everything that you have done. And that was a an incredible process of doing a national search with a search firm that's cast a net, because that's what you do. You cast a wide net, and then you find a person down the street who's led to be your leader. And so I'm really happy that was the outcome. I did my absolute best. I'll tell you the truth now. I did my absolute best to be Switzerland during the process. It's like, I'm going to guide the process. That is my role. I'm neutral. I don't have a dog in this fight. Blah blah blah. But when I saw Bethany's name on there, I was like, yes. Yes, I'm really glad that you threw your name into it, and that the wisdom of the team, because it wasn't my decision alone, the wisdom of the team saw. And having unbelievably completed now your first year in this role, Bethany's, started October 18th of 2021. Who starts a new job during COVID, during isolation, doing separation, and make progress and build connections and make things stronger and better? So of all the things that I leave here, giving the gavel to Beth, grateful for is having had a chance to work side by side for the last year with you as our chair. And finally, this is fun thing. So if you've ever been a Deaconess Foundation Board trustee, you know that you're a Deaconess Foundation Board trustee for life, right? The only thing that changes is that you don't get to vote. But that's the one thing that I learned when I first came into the foundation, that our ability to hold and maintain our relationships and our connection as leaders and thinkers and partners with members of our former trustees is forever. So I'm excited to know that there are two people who are going to join. Who's leaving us this year? Yeah, I'm not going to acknowledge it. I'm just kidding. So Bethany, these three Black women are interchangeable in my mind sometimes for a particular reason, because they are inseparable. So sometimes I might call Cheryl or Vanessa or Bethany Cheryl or Vanessa, right? And sometimes not. So Vanessa Foster Cooksey, CEO of the Regional Arts Commission, stuck around an extra year just as vice president of the board to help me and help Bethany and help the organization transition into this new year of leadership. Starting a brand new leadership job yourself. Just stepping into a CEO role, and you said, yes, I will stay another year and make sure this goes well. So thank you, beloved sister friend, for what you have done as a VP of this board. Wish you well, but we know we're not done with you, because no trustees ever released for life. Who else is leaving us today? Who's the somebody else? Oh, right. Where's Tammy on screen? Tammy Kriebel. Yeah, I saw her in the earlier meeting, so I know she's around. So Tammy Kriebel, who currently has led our finance committee and has served how many years on the board? A lot. A lot. Tammy has made sure that Matt had an equal partner in leading and thinking about the finances. Tammy's the person I know, there you are. Tammy's the person I know will ask the question that needs to be asked at every meeting, whatever that question is. I love your mind. I love your commitment to getting it right, to not being afraid to speak up and talk about whatever it is you're talking about. So Tammy, thank you for all your years of service. Once again, let me remind you, you are not done, even though you're not, even though your term is up. Once a trustee, always a trustee. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to lead this board with you on it. So thank you, my partner friends. And that's all I had to do, right? All right. I did what I was supposed to do. Cheryl said I had 2 minutes, but I'm going to give them back. Thank you. And I pass the gavel to our president CEO.
Well, good evening to everybody. I have to say that the 2021 public meeting was held at 7:30 a.m. And what a difference a year later makes. So I want to say first that it is so good to be among so many that have joined us in person, and the 48 people that are participating by Zoom. That is not small, that is significant, and we thank you for your time and your commitment to be here. Thank you personally for all of the love that has poured out to me and toward my family during our time of bereavement. The joy of this work and the spirit in this room tonight is truly what sustains me. So my feet made me get up to be here because this is where I had to be. So again, welcome if you didn't feel it. that spirit that's in the room hugging you, that is Deaconess spirit. So welcome into the space, whether virtual or in front of me now. As you will look on your agenda, you will find that the first item under my report is to discuss the new market tax credit unwinding process. I'm going to jump in for transparency and context. Through the assistance of the new market tax credit program, we were able to finance the construction of the Deaconess Center for Child Wellbeing where we sit or where you visit virtually. With the 7-year compliance period for that program drawing to a close in August 2024. Everybody say August 2024.
August 2024.
We are backwards planner extraordinaire, which means that 2023 is when we plan to be very thoughtful about the process, and we will create a task force that will have a charge of 2 things. The first part of the charge is to understand the impact of unwinding the tax credit financing, and 2, to recommend future actions regarding our finances, our operations, and our organizational structure. There are significant financial and operational decisions, and we want to make sure, because we're Deaconess, that we do our due diligence, because all these decisions have implications. So with that as the context for new market tax credits and part of our 2023 commitments, I'm going to move to our second item of business by asking Matt if he would come, because we have 2 proposed budgets for your approval today.
These cameras throw me off. I got the perfect face for radio. First off, Rudy, thank you for your kind remarks. I really appreciate it. Just want to call out one of the future audit committee chairs is evidence that all roads come back to Deaconess. One of our former audit committee chairs is
Robin Hadley, and she is currently the Dean of Students at the University of Virginia and has the unenviable task now of bringing that community together and helping them grieve. And yesterday morning, she lives on campus, and she herself was in lockdown during the whole yesterday. So just a moment to think of her and keep her in your prayers. Deaconess lives at this intersection, right, of faith and philanthropy and banking and finances. So I'm going to talk a little bit about finances. The first order of business is the 2023 operational budget for the Deaconess Foundation. For those of you that don't know, the foundation has a $50 million investment portfolio made up of unrestricted assets. We are going to tap into that portfolio in order to pay for our operations every year. And one of the things that we're calling out differently, a little bit differently this year, is that we're highlighting the 3 different, or specifically the 2 different tracks that exist within that $50 million portfolio. First one is the unrestricted assets. And so we're tapping into about $4.1 million of net assets from the unrestricted portfolio. That's a 5% increase over what we used last year from 3.9. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to tap into $2.1 million of our donor restricted assets. So for those of you that may not be aware, our mission dates back 135 plus years. And we were blessed to have a number of assets given to us when we were a hospital system. Well, when the donors setting that up, they set aside a number of restrictions. And so we want to spend down that amount or take advantage of it, which we quite honestly haven't been doing for a number of years. Those includes nursing scholarships, senior services, as well as the Racial Equity and Racial Healing and Justice Fund. So we're tap into those and call them down and use some of those. In addition, we've been blessed with a number of other resources, contributions, and grants made to the foundation. And then we also have other revenue that's brought in. We're expecting total revenue in 2023 to be $7 million. And then we're going to spend that in a number of different ways. We're going to spend that on initiatives. That includes our grant making. That includes our advocacy efforts. In fact, we're spending more in advocacy efforts as part of our strategic plan as we move from purely being a grant maker to more of an institutional advocate. And then we're also providing additional dollars for grant, what we call grant enhancement support. These are dollars beyond our additional grant. So it includes convening space here at the Deaconess Center, but also maybe includes additional training for some of our nonprofit partners, or maybe includes paying for a search committee if they're going through a leadership search, things like that. Then we also have management and operations. That includes the paying for personnel, but also includes professional services, whether that's legal, HR, payroll, accounting, which we all outsource, IT services. And then lastly, we have our other expenses from our board designated funds. In 2022, we were gifted $1 million grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. In 2023, we expect to spend about $250,000 of that. That leaves us with a surplus of about $5,000 in the 2023 year. Pardon me?
We like to have a surplus.
We like that. I'm asking the board if they have any questions about the proposed budget. Seeing none, then we'll have we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Great, thank you. Now we can keep the lights on January 1, so I appreciate that. The next order of business is for the Board of the Deaconess Center, and that's approving their operational budget for the 2023 year. They have two primary sources of revenue. The Deaconess Foundation leases the space from the Deaconess Center. So that lease, the Deaconess Foundation will pay into the center for that. The other thing is that we ask all the co-locating partners, including the Deaconess Foundation, Vision for Children at Risk, and Unleashing Potential, to pay what we call shared services. It's analogous for those of you who work in real estate to common area maintenance. It's what pays for the internet, garbage, the elevator, and things like that. We're expecting total revenue of about $523,000 next year. From an operating standpoint, we have literally bills and utilities to keep the lights on. We also have bills and utilities for garbage, inspection. It snowed this morning, so cleaning out the parking lot in the morning and things like that. And then there are additional expenses for the staff to maintain the facility. We expect total expenses this next year to be $545,000. That unfortunately is a deficit of about $21,000. We knew that when we set this up, when we set up the new market tax credit structure, that the last 2 years would be running a deficit. The lease only goes up 2% a year, where we know if you've been in the market, right? Inflation is going up much higher percentage than that. But the good news is that even though it is a deficit, we still have $750,000 approximately left in the bank. So we'll be able to manage that. I'm asking the Deaconess Center board if they have any questions. And I do need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second. All for the Deaconess board, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And so the Deaconess Center will be able to have electricity and running water from there.
Well, this part moves me to the last item of my report, say a bit about 2023 and to recognize the outgoing chair and trustees. Easy breezy from here for me. So again, it is important for me to share my deep regard and respect for the leadership and wisdom of Vanessa Cooksey and Tammy Crable, who have contributed during their tenure as devoted trustees an enormous amount of time and wisdom, exceeding above and beyond what expectations on paper would ever say. And as is the Deaconess tradition, covenant is forever. And so we will lean in with full embrace, inviting you to stay in the family and the mission as you transition off the board, but not off of leadership. And already we know that 2023 is gearing up to be a great year. It's gearing up to be a much better year than this year. I'm grateful for thinking about 2023. So with that, we are excited as I'm getting texts with happy new trustees who are newly appointed. Could we clap our hands and already get them licensed? forward to working so closely with you and also to those that are newly appointed officers or reappointed officers for another year next year. And with that, with our vision of 7 generations and our commitment of thinking about 100 years now in mind, where Deaconess will be at the confluence of where the will of the Holy Spirit, there's a lot of spirit, so I got to be clear. The will of the Holy Spirit and the will of the people meet. Our team has spent the last several months seeking the wisdom of our partners, neighbors, communities, plural, and God's will to inform our strategy, which are and will be reflected in our budgets, in our priorities, in our public policy priorities, and how we as individual leaders actually show up in this work. As you've heard, discussed and approved a few moments ago, good job, Matt, congratulations to us. Our newly approved 2023 budgets were developed with intentionality already to be responsive to what we've heard and what we know in alignment with our refreshed public policy priorities, of which you're getting ready to hear about. It's the whole purpose of this evening. And you will hear about our evolving funding strategy, of which Keisha is ready to tell you about again this evening. This leads me to the last part of what I need to say, and my goal and purpose is to gush loving remarks about our outgoing chair, Rudy, which is not hard to do. So Rudy, we have been so very blessed and honored to be in such close proximity to your Eunice. There was no word that fitted, so I just call it your Eunice, your brilliance. For the last 6 years, for a term that started 2017, we overlapped as trustees. When Deaconess committed to rooting racial equity into our governance structure, you were the first to help us understand how to metabolize that wish. And so you were the first chair of the Racial Equity Then Task Force, which affirmed Deaconess's organizational commitment to racial equity, including the revision of the vision statement and setting internal goals around procurements. Who else is doing that? I'm just challenging my colleagues in philanthropy, I'm just saying. So with your support as board chair, the task force is now a standing committee of the board. That means something. And we appreciate your steady leadership that led this organization through a significant executive leadership transition, and most meaningfully to me, I got the mic. You have embodied what it means to truly trust, support, fund, and go to the mat for Black women. Yes, Lord. Other leaders and boards should take note of and emulate. You are a world-class, exemplary man of character and integrity, Rudy Nickens. We are graced to have you on the planet. We are graced to say that you're from St. Louis. Period. We are graced because we had you as trustee and I had you as my chair. And we know for a fact that the very best of retirement life and legacy are yet to come for you. We love you. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Nobody better be appropriate.
Aye.
Even on Zoom, they're saying aye. So with that, love and support, Rudy. We send you off, but not far for next year. And now it's my job to transition us to the fun part of why we're here tonight. Let's talk, Constance, about the strategic refinement and beyond.
All of it was fun because the money is how we're going to get to the other part of it. And so I do want to take this opportunity to invite our board members to join everyone else in the audience, so you don't, because your board business is done voting, and so you get to be a part of community with us from that side. And you can leave your things up here. Yeah, those at the end. Good evening. I'm Constance Harper, the Vice President of Policy, Advocacy, and Strategic Initiatives. Here at Deaconess. It's a public meeting, so let's have fun.
That's right.
And hello to everyone in the virtual space. We really appreciate you joining us and offering your input as well. So I want to share with you what we've been up to for the last few months and where we are in this process. So you'll see that we're talking about strategy refresh. And we're going to share tonight some of our trending finds that we've been learning from community, that's been bubbling up in community. And then we're going to invite you to be a part of this brainstorm with us. We're going to invite you into this public session. You may see different things around the room, and don't feel left out. People in the virtual space, we have an experience for you as well. So for the last few months, we have been going out to community. The last time we've adopted our public policy priorities was in 2014. And so much life has happened since then. So many wins, so many community successes. Some things have stayed the same, and then new things have bubbled up. And so as we're looking with our eye on 7 generations and 100 years ahead, what is it now that are the pressing needs of the community? And how can Deaconess, using all of our power, turn that over to community so that community really owns our strategy, and so that community voice drives the work that we do here? And so later tonight, when my colleague Keisha comes up, you'll hear too how the community that we're a part of has driven even how we're deciding what to prioritize and what to invest deeper in, starting in 2023. So we're excited to share some of these trending finds with you tonight, but we're equally excited to hear from you. If you've not been a part of this process, this is your opportunity to weigh in. We've got a couple more months left in this process. This is one of our last large input sessions. And then from there, we'll continue synthesizing, and we'll share with you very transparently what we've heard, and then the action that we're going to take so that you, as a part of our community, can hold us accountable to making sure that we're investing appropriately and that we're investing with children in mind, but not only children, their community of caregivers and the communities in which they reside. And so tonight I'm going to turn it over actually to our lovely consultants who have been a part of this process and I should say the Deaconess team. We've been spending so much time in partnership with them, designing a truly authentic process. And so I have Gladiator Consulting here. They're from local St. Louis and in partnership with Commonality, Inc. And they have offices and reside in California, San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. And it was our intention to pair local consultants with national consultants so that we can get an overview of what's happening nationally and what policies are trending and what policies in communities that look like ours are actually successful. And how did they get there, right? Was it through ballot initiative? Was it working through the local circuit before going statewide? So we've designed this process with so much intentionality, and our partners have guided us in this work as well. And I will introduce the people behind the logos and behind me too. So Sherelle Hendricks is with Gladiator Consulting, and Fisher Jackson's in the back in the room, helping to manage the virtual space as well as with Gladiator Consulting. We've got Ann Ballick with Commonality. She's in the room too. And then Elizabeth Vegas with Commonality will also be managing the virtual participants. And with that, I turn it over to Sherelle and Ann.
So much. Thank you, Constance, for that warm and helpful introduction. I think it really sets the stage for what we want to talk to you about tonight and the activities we want to do together to truly drive this process forward as a community. So on the behalf of Gladiator and Commonality, let's dive right in. Next slide. So why are we here? Well, I think that Constance and Bethany both just framed why so eloquently. But on the slides, you'll see our goal, our why, if you will, and our outcome. And truly, this process is about taking a moment to pause. A lot has happened over the last several years. I know we all feel it. I know that we all experience it. And so even though the many priorities that Deaconess has worked on over the years are valid, are important, do matter, it's just a time to reflect. Let's take a moment. Let's see where the community is at. Let's see where the community needs us. Let's see where the community wants things to go. And how can we best support that? How can we best support community-driven change? That is why we are here today. So with that, next slide. That said, the current priorities are on the screen. I'm going to take a moment and let you review them. As we chart our course forward, it's important to remember that we are not here to diminish the past work. It's very important. It's done a lot. And so with that, we want to take a little moment here and reflect upon the wins seen to date regarding the existing priorities, because they are many. Next slide. Above on the screen, you'll notice some example community wins. And I do want to stress that community wins. Not all are directly tied to what Deaconess has done. Some of Deaconess work has supported these, but they are all progress made across the 4 issues that we just saw slated on the screen. And they are all wins for which the community should be proud. This is wonderful, excellent progress. Next slide. So now we're going to do an exercise. The list on the previous page is by no means exhaustive, and that's why we want to be hearing from you today. So on the screen is a QR code as well as a Mentimeter link. They were also supplied in your agendas. So it would be the lower QR code in the agenda if for some reason that's easier for you than the screen. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a platform called Mentimeter. Mentimeter allows us to gather large amounts of information from many people in real time. If you are in the virtual setting right now, my colleague Elizabeth will be dropping a link into the chat that you can use. We want to crowdsource from you. What wins have you seen across those 4 categories? What comes to mind when you think about wins and progress made in Deaconess's current priority areas? I will then ask Anne to flip to the next slide, or to the actual Mentimeter link rather, and show us in real time what we are hearing from virtual and in-person participants regarding this. So we're seeing some things on the slide. Medicaid expansion, yes. More effective elected officials, centering systems and policy. Pushing other funders to fund Black-led organizations. That's great. Black-led organizations. Being available with responses to the flooding. Yes, that was the ability to turn on the dime when the need was now and be responsive to community. Very great. Changing conversations about philanthropy and Black-led leadership. Fantastic. Diversity. Community-centered, community comprehensive, community development plan. Yes, absolutely. Leading the funding community in racial equity investments. So important. The Racial Healing and Justice Fund. Absolutely. We just heard that mentioned. Very, very critical. Deeper support for BIPOC entrepreneurs, tenant organizing. A focus on early childhood education. Absolutely. Presence in the community through the Deaconess Center where we are right now. That absolutely matters. We've heard that time and time again. Higher voter turnout so people are able to voice their needs. Absolutely. COVID response resources. Certainly, that's been an impact on all of us over the last couple of years. Fearless dialogues. I love that. Uplifting and centering community voice. Certainly. Supporting Black leaders. Better visibility of Black-led organizations, absolutely. Seeking feedback and critique. Yes, being open, asking for guidance and direction, certainly. Okay. So guided by these wins, let's think about where we are today, what's been accomplished, and where we can go in the future. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to my colleague Sherelle to talk about our process.
So before we get into the findings, it's important to know that this process was thoughtful and it was intentional and very purposeful. So here's how we went about it. So first we met with the Deaconess team, right? And we're like, what questions are we seeking to answer through this engagement? These are our two guiding questions that we use throughout this entire process. The first, how can Deaconess Foundation improve the lives and futures for young people, families, and communities? And the second was, how can Deaconess organize people and resources to sustain change? So we gathered community input through three primary ways. First, we were attending community events. We were at back to school bashes, we were at Blacktoberfest, we were at Frizz Fest, and we were asking people like, tell us what you need, tell us what you're experiencing. We had interviews with funded partners, as well as others within the region who were familiar with the work of Deaconess, as well as those who were not. And we also had focus groups. We had focus groups with residents, as well as community partners. This allowed us the opportunity to ask more intentional and guided questions. We also learned from the national perspective as well. So same thing, we were doing interviews, we were doing surveys, and we were doing research to see like what lessons can we learn from our neighbors and from a national perspective that we can use to incorporate in our learning for this particular project. Here's some pictures from our engagement. So you'll see like back when there wasn't snow on the ground, we were out in community and we're asking people like, hey, come get a sticky note. Tell us what you're experiencing. Tell us what you're thinking. We have engaged with a total of 650 individuals to date. And so what this means is that we engaged with like, we had 504 data points from community event attendance, 40 from focus groups, 54 one-on-one conversations, as well as 60 survey responses. And so what's important to, what we hope to convey with sharing this number is not that we've reached a particular number. So like, yes, we can check it off the box, but that we were very intentional in gaining a variety. So not only were we in St. Louis, we were also on the Illinois side as well, because we wanted to hear from as many individuals as possible. So when we were talking to individuals, when we started, we were asking them, what improvement do you need in your life? So we presented them with these options and we're saying, hey, how would changes in the following areas positively impact your life? Education, employment, finances, health, housing, local and state judicial system, as well as other. Same categories as you see in the room. And first, we just wanted to know, what do you need? Then when we got the numbers, we saw some trends, but we wanted to know more. So in our second wave, we're like, okay, how could improvement in this area impact your life? Here are some things that we heard. So under housing, people were saying things like improvement of housing quality will ensure I have stable electricity and reliable clean water. One person shared, I was displaced by floods in U City. I would like more affordable housing. Another person said, easy access to housing, furnished, change generational issues with housing insecurity. So here's just a sample of some of the quotes that we heard specific to this area. For the next area of education, people said things like offer the same opportunities in the city that are offered in the county. More Black educators would create a welcoming environment. Quality access to early childhood education will ensure our future generation thrives. Under finances, one person said less stress, able to focus on life and family. Creating generational wealth and allow me to contribute to my community. Another person shared, if it were easier to get a loan, I could open a small business. Under health, one person said, as a retired teacher with a minimal amount of pension, I struggle with affordable health insurance for my family and myself. Rising cost on set income makes life unpredictable and difficult. More access, more choices. And then for the local and state judicial system, alternative responses to harm and violence. Police that look like my brown son.
Thanks, Sherelle. So now that we've reflected on the individual topics, we want to stress something else that we've heard from community. And there's a quote on the screen that I think everyone should read and take to heart. My housing affects where my kids go to school, which affects economic opportunities. I cannot separate these challenges. This is something we heard time and time again as we engaged with residents. It's very difficult when your life is interwoven. You don't live separate, you live interwoven. And so that is something we've been taking to heart as we continue to do our work and engage with community, because teasing things out, that's difficult, and things are interwoven. This is also reinforced by the Ferguson Commission report. On the slide is a quote that stresses the same thing, and I'd like to really stress the last sentence. Black people in the region feel those repercussions when it comes to law enforcement, the justice system, housing, health, education, and income. It stresses this interconnectivity between the various issues we've been asking about, and that's what we've heard from the community as well. So there really is this through line of everything being connected. So with that, we now want to invite you to help us explore these themes. We're going to be doing this in two ways. It's going to take about 20 minutes for our exercise, and it will take place both in person and virtually online. I'm going to start by giving the instructions for in-person participants. We're then going to mute the room, turn off our screen, and my colleague Elizabeth, who is online, will be sharing the instructions for the virtual participants. But with that, next slide. So on the screen are your instructions. On the note, basically on the walls, you're going to note that there are 7 various stations around the room. I am your flight attendant showing you where they're located. Step 1, when you go to a station, we ask that you review the community member quotes for each issue. There are green and red dots available at the 3 tables in the room. Take them. If there's a quote that really resonates with you, please take a green dot and put it to the side. If alternatively, there is a quote that doesn't really align with what you've heard or you've experienced yourself, or that you felt meets with your experience in the community, place a red dot. This is not to say, by the way, that you have to place a dot by every quote. It's just if it really resonates to you personally and has meaning to you. Additionally, you'll notice that we have a second half of each station where it says other. This is your opportunity to share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. How do you define this topic? What lived experience do you have that might be important for us to know? Is there anything that you've heard from community that you'd like to reshare back to us when it relates to these specific issues? So as I mentioned, we're going to have 20 minutes to do that. I invite you all to your feet. There's stations with Post-its, pens, dots. Sherelle and I will be walking around the room.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Vegas. I am from Commonality, and I am your virtual facilitator for this section of our meeting today. The exercise is going to be somewhat similar to what Anne just described. What we're going to do is I'm going to put a Mentimeter link in the chat box. And what we're going to ask you to do, you're going to have the ability you'll see like a blue dot on your screen. You'll be able to use your mouse and move that dot to one of the 3 statements. And what we're going to ask you to do, very similarly as the in-person, is which one of these statements resonated the most with you. So we're going to start off with the first theme, which is housing. And I just put that link in there. I'm going to give everybody like a minute or 2. I want to be sure everyone can access the link. Has no problems. If you have any trouble with the link or anything, just please message me in this chat box here. And you can see there's 3 quotes. And once you all start using your dots, you're going to see where the dots are landing. Okay, looks like we're getting some folks. And does it look like, I think it looks like we're not getting any more answers. Okay, so you can see here. Oh, we had one more. I'm going to give it just one more second to make sure if there's anybody else. So it looks like the first and the third really resonated significantly with all of you all on this one. We're going to move to the second theme, which is education. And that link is, I just put that in the chat box. Same, it's the same exercise. You'll see a series of 3 quotes, and we're going to ask you to use that little blue dot to note which of those 3 most resonates with you. Okay, it looks like we have everyone has voted. So this one's interesting. We have a lot of dots on the first one and the third one. That was similar, first one and third one as well. Okay, we're going to move to the next one, which is finances. And I'm going to put that in the chat box. Did everyone see that link? Oh, I think I only accidentally, I apologize. That link was somehow only sent to one person. Sorry about that. I just put the link in there. I was wondering why I'm not seeing dots. I apologize about that. Okay, it looks like we have most of the responses for this. It looks like the first 2 did very well of these 2 topics. The fourth category or theme that I'm going to ask you to opine on is the health, not the health, apologize. So I just put that in the chat box. And please choose which one of these three statements resonates with you best. Great. It looks like, no, this one is a little bit more first and the second also. Okay. And then we have one final one. And I'm going to put that in the chat box right now. And that is local and state judicial systems. And could you switch, yeah, close out health, and then we'll go, yeah, thank you. Okay. And those were all of our different categories that we asked you to review. Our next Mentimeter is going to be an open-ended question, and you all will have about 4 minutes for this because this section will go up until 7:10. So what we're going to, for this, we're asking for just any general feedback at all on any of these topics, categories that you might have. So submit your feedback on these issues. Is there anything more that you would like to opine on regarding these issues? We asked you to really note what, resonated most, but what are your own opinions or your own thoughts on the different categories and issues that we've uncovered? And again, you have about, well, now 3 minutes. So we have about till 7:10 to answer this question. And you can have more than one answer to this. You all have about another minute, and then we're gonna join the in-person session for our final session. Okay, thank you all. Looks like we're getting back to our final session. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be leaving up these posters for the rest of the night. So as you exit, please feel free to take a moment and complete your thoughts. We want to hear from you and we don't want to rush you. So with that, our last exercise, at least at this portion of the evening, is focused on organizational values. We've had many conversations with Deaconess over the last several months about the values needed to support community-driven work. So a tangential, but very important, I should say, aspect of our work has been to explore this topic, potential guiding values for the organization. We've asked community members at events and in focus groups for feedback on this, and now is our chance to hear from you. So, Deaconess has important organizational guiding values today, and they hold me dear. But as we embark on this journey to dedicate all focus on community-driven work, we want to know, specifically this question: what values must guide Deaconess in its pursuit of transformational, generational change? 7 generations, 100 years. What values must guide that? Another way to think about this is, if we are the type of organization that can create change for 100 years, what type of guiding values would we need? Think about mission, vision, and values, that type of guiding values. So now we're going to ask for your feedback via Mentimeter. On the screen is another QR code that we ask you to please get out your devices and use. For those of you who are participating virtually, my colleague Elizabeth is going to be dropping a link in the chat right now. Yes.
It's unfortunate due to the consequences of my tax bracket and my cell phone plan. Every time I do this, take away the minutes on my phone.
Absolutely. So I should have mentioned earlier on the,
Funny.
no, we do understand that. On the CDR index cards, if for some reason you are not able to participate with your device, please use the index card and bring it in. I should have mentioned it earlier. It's a very good point, regardless,
I
right?
got my phone at the gas station.
I get you. And we all are engaging with technology in different ways. So thank you for the reminder. I should have mentioned that earlier. All right. Additionally, the QR code, though, for those who do want to participate, is also the top one in your agenda, if that is easier. And now, yes, on the screen, we've got some example organizational values coming up, both from the virtual participants as well as those in person. Equity, justice, youth voice. Oh, co-learning, that's great. Youth decision-making, intergenerational, increasing awareness and trust. Oh, transparency, very powerful.
I'm making this hard, making one word. It's like 2 words. You know,
It's okay, again, that index card, if you want to write a sentence, well, listen, feel free to type it in, that's great.
2 words.
Yeah. Collaboration, transparency. And you'll notice the word cloud is growing and evolving as we all share our words. Directly impact, build bridges, Youth voice, community, trustworthy, uncompromising. Powerful. Dismantling prejudice. Transformative. Bridging the age gap. Right. This is going to continue to grow and evolve in the background. I don't want you to stop. If you have thoughts, you can input as many values as you want to produce our feedback. But with that, we are now going to transition to the final act, if you will, of the night. So I'm going to turn things over to Sherelle to talk about one final thought that we think is really important.
So as we transition and hand this over to Keisha, one thing that we want to close with is a quote that actually came from one of the partners. We have their permission to read this quote to you guys. It is also on the screen. But it says, many foundations choose to only invest in initiatives or campaigns that have specific outcomes of incremental change. For this reason, many organizations are not funded to work on innovative and visionary campaigns that truly center the most impacted. Deaconess was the only local funder to support our campaign to close the workhouse, and we remained a partner in that work until the jail was empty. Their investment in our work has resulted in seismic shifts in our region. And that is from Kayla Reed. We again had our
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I promise I won't be before you long. We're in the home stretch. Constance gave me a few more minutes, but we'll figure it out. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about the work, as everyone kind of indicated earlier, that we've undergone in partnership with our partners over the last few months. Ideally, we've gone out and talked to our partners, and they've been really, really candid with us along the way to share and tell us what they need in order to change conditions for young people and change conditions for our community at large. And so we were really grateful for all of that information that they have shared. I want to tell you a little bit about that process, the inputs, the elements of our new refined funding strategy, as well as our pathway forward. Next slide. So when talking about the process steps, we embarked on some really deep listening. It really started off with our regular engagement with our partners through our normal check-ins and roundtables. And our partners were really open in giving us the dreaming vision for how we would get to that generational change that we hope to see. Along the way, we did some external research as well as some internal reflection and data analysis of our giving trends from the prior few years in our current funding portfolio. All of those inputs informed how we got to the draft framework that we then socialized over the course of a month and a half and brought us to this day where we are sharing with you as a public release what our new funding transformative funding portfolio will be. Next slide. So when we talk about our transformational grant portfolio, we want to focus on how we will be broader with a larger number of partners. Many of you are familiar with our capacity building program, where we have funded a cohort of organizations for multiple years. And what we've heard from our collection of partners in our ecosystem is that in order to do deep and substantive movement work, we needed to make a commitment, and we needed to urge philanthropy and other investors to make a multi-year commitment to support the work that they are doing in community. And so we are committing to expanding the network of organizations that we're providing multi-year funding to, and we're providing flexible funding. We know that partners need to be responsive to the needs that are happening in community on a daily basis. And so we wanted to make sure that they had all of the supports they need to be able to get out into community and represent all of the needs that community members, like many of you, have already indicated. So you will find in our movement transformation grants, we will be offering 3-year general operating grants for a cohort of about 20 organizations that we have had a deep history and relationship with. I'll talk a little bit further about how we will continue to go deeper with those organizations. Then thinking about movement building, those are, again, flexible funding opportunities
much like our current responsive grant portfolio that we want to have that are offered on a quarterly basis to be able, again, to be responsive to the emergent and changing landscape. Again, we offer that and we'll be offering that to partners either in a general operating space or in a specific funding category or campaign that they may be embarking on. Again, we know that there will be emerging needs that will continue to arise, and we want to make sure that we are walking alongside our partners in that space. Matt talked a little bit earlier about the budget and our grant enhancement supports. One of the things that we embarked on over the course of this year is expanding the offerings that we have as it relates to training. I think a hallmark of Deaconess is being able to offer training free of charge to our partners. We know that many nonprofits don't necessarily always have the budgets to support professional development. And we know that we want to make sure that they have the increased skills and competencies to be able to do their work in an effective way. And so we will continue to offer an extensive menu of offerings to our partners so that they can continue to build their competency and capacity to do great and important work. When we talk about policy, campaign, and collaborative grants, we recognize that there are some big bets that we need to take to support us towards our transformational change that we know we want to see. In a couple of years, we know we will have a pretty significant electoral year, and we want to make sure that our partners are well equipped to be able to respond to the dynamics within the electoral landscape and the policy landscape. Next, I'll talk about participatory grant making. How many of you have heard of the Racial Healing and Justice Fund? Awesome. So the Racial Healing and Justice Fund kicked off about 3 years ago, and this is the final year of the pilot that we worked in partnership with our friends at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, as well as Missouri Foundation for Health, led in project management, working with our Community Governance Board, who is meeting right now as we speak in the virtual space. And they have been doing a yeoman's job in the midst of the world turning upside down to make sure that Black and Brown people have the supports that they need to heal from the impacts of racialized trauma. And we are so grateful for the deep work that the Community Governance Board and all of our partners have done over the past 3 years. And recognizing the deep importance of that work, we plan to endow the Racial Healing and Justice Fund. So if we haven't already connected with you to tell you a little bit about the work that is done, please know that I will be having conversations with you over the coming months. In addition to the Racial Healing and Justice Fund, as Matt indicated, we do have resources that are specifically dedicated within our portfolio for senior services. And as Constance indicated in her opening, we know that young people exist within communities, within families, within neighborhoods. And sometimes we know that those are intergenerational dynamics, right? And so we're excited to partner with our friends over at the Regional Health Commission to kick off a senior support participatory grant making process. They are in the very early stages of pulling together that work as we speak, and you'll hear more about that at the top of 2023. And then lastly, one of the things that came up in the word cloud was youth-led, right? Youth voice. What are we here for? We're here to make sure that our young people have the future that they deserve. And we're really excited about the opportunity to have a youth-led specific participatory grant-making process in 2024. So over the course of 2023, we'll be in deep learning and exploration to determine what that process will look like. So please stay tuned. So we love visualizations around here. You want to look and see when we talk about the investments that we plan to make, this gives you a little bit of a breakdown of how our grant making portfolio will shift from its current iteration. We are going deeper and we're going bigger because we know it is called for. It is the largest allotment to our multi-year commitment to our partners and the way that we aim to be an institutional advocate for change. Some additional evolution markers within our grant making portfolio are a couple of areas that we wanted to highlight for you. Many of you might be familiar when we decided to support systems change. We started by supporting 3 tactics for change: community organizing, advocacy, and public policy change. And those will continue to be within our priority areas as far as tactics that we aim to see. We are also including into the mix advocacy defense, narrative advocacy, and healing justice. When we talk about advocacy defense, we recognize that in Missouri, we are in a very unique state. And we have to make sure that our partners have the supports needed to be able to respond to that. When we talk about narrative advocacy, we know that sometimes the images and stories of people that are most impacted are not justly articulated. And we want to make sure that there are opportunities to lift up and amplify the voices of individuals who have largely been left without a seat at the table. And lastly, and certainly but not least, as an organization deeply rooted in health equity, we do have an opportunity to make sure that we want to support healing justice across our ecosystem of partners. We're really excited to be launching a leading liberation retreat in partnership with Emerging Wisdom for Black women leaders on December 9th. We'll be sharing more information about that, but we will be having more and more offerings for our entire ecosystem of partners, specifically in that space to support healing. We know that movement work is hard work, and you need and have to have space in order to do that work in the long term. The other remaining pieces of our evolution have to do with partner engagement. I'm so excited to have expanded our team in our grant making by the addition of Delisha George, who is with us at the back of the room. She and I will be hitting the streets as well as our full staff. One of the things that came up in our listening sessions was an eager opportunity from our partners to actually have us in community and in their spaces. So we're going to be coming out into your community and your spaces shortly. And then thinking about ways that we can reduce burdens on our partners. We have a compressed review process for movement building grants. And so right now we aim to have grants dispensed out into community within 8 weeks of a submission. And we plan to reduce that to 6 weeks. And we hope to, for our movement transformation partners, because we have been in deep relationship with them, we will not have reporting and or application process. We really want to make sure that partners have what they need to be able to get out and do. And then lastly, so we're being accountable to community. We have worked with the Quoro Fellows, a cohort of Quoro Fellows to create an equitable distribution tool to help us make sure that we are distributing our funds in an equitable way, whether it be geographically, right? We represent not only Missouri, but also Illinois, but also that we're making sure that we are following progress on community level wins, as well as making sure that communities served are represented by the organizations that we're funding. And then lastly, the path forward. We will be having orientations. We like to get out into community as much as possible and talk to our partners. And some folks have been able to join us on our listening session conversation, but we know that many partners were not able to join that. So we will be having orientations within the first quarter of 2023, just to give partners an update on where we are with our new processes. We will be releasing a policy campaign grant within the first quarter. Woo-hoo. We will also be selecting our movement transformation cohort by the second quarter of 2023. So please be on the lookout for more information about that. And then our first round of movement building grants will be available in the second quarter as we transition from our current grant portfolio to our transformative grant portfolio. So with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Rudy.
Thank you.
Move around for Keisha and Constance and the team. Finally, I will just close with another deep, deep appreciation to each of you for joining us tonight, for being a part of our community and doing this work. We wouldn't want to do it without you. It's really important that each of you are here. Please stay in touch, and anything that we can do, anything that we should know, please let us know. You know, that was not an exercise just for fun. That was about gathering input from our community, our partners, our stakeholders and letting us know just what you think and what do you want us to put our attention and resources and time towards. So I really appreciate that exercise and know that we will take everything under consideration seriously that you put forward. So finally, it has been really great to be here, great to be in this role. I'm excited about Beth Noonan and the new executive leadership, the executive team. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just excited that we're changing hats and doing new things. Thank you all for being a part of this, and we'll see you everywhere.